Why write the book, Dan? What struck you about the
Good
book?
question. I mean, again, this isn't to, we all know who won those games and the stats and Hall of Famers, but this was a time when the NBA kind of came of age, and we had this amazing access. This jumped out at me during the pandemic when access got to zero. The moat just kept getting wider and wider, and then with abundance of caution, there's no access now. But we live with these guys. This is like, when the dinosaurs and Larry Bird and myself roamed the earth. We travel with them. They flew commercial, hotels, lobbies, bars, go to practice, no closed practices, be on the bus. It was like, except for not having the groupies or the money or the fame, it was like being on the team, Rich. I mean, we were there for everything. And watching the Last Dance and some of the classics they showed in the without games going on during the pandemic, I kept seeing my young self sitting there with the giant Michael Caine glasses and the big hair, and and again, that's when the lowly media got to sit next to the bench. They hadn't figured out how to monetize those seats yet, so we were part of that. And of course, you had the Bird Magic, take over the '80s, and the Bird Magic Celtic Laker finals were like the Ali Frazier of that time. And I just had all these stories about being around these guys and the ability to tell the readers what they were like, how secure they were in their greatness, and what a special time it was when the NBA really came of age.
So you're saying at some point in Logan Airport, a Boston fan flying to Cleveland for just a business trip got to actually see Robert Parrish board a flight? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. When we would get off the plane, they were all in first class because they're so tall and they had those perks. But we'd come off the plane behind them, and you'd see these people just walking down the airport hallways, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, I just saw all these tall guys at one time. Those must be a basketball team." And and then the lowly writers would be trailing them, and we'd hear all the whispering about Larry Bird or Robert Parrish or whatnot. But yeah, it was. We waited for bags. We did, all the. Rich, when the COVID bubble, when they had that tournament with no fans and in Orlando, you had to, if you went to cover that, it cost $60,000. You had to quarantine for 2 weeks and sign a waiver saying you would not talk to any athlete if you saw them anywhere. And that's where we did all of our work, was waiting for bags in the hotel bars, the lobbies, being on the bus. We were really able to tell the readers what these guys were like, and it was a very special group that they had there. The Lakers had it going in that decade as well, and the league really took off because of that.
Dan Shaughnessy here on the Rich Eisen Show. It's interesting that you have such a I guess a positive view of it, and it's sort of a very hagiographic view of it all. Me being from New York, I don't mean to stomp on your book, but I have written my own book, and if you want to, we actually have a cover. Maybe you'll see it later on. It's entitled "Thank God It Ended," living through the Bird Celtics in New York, and there's a shot on the cover of Bird shooting over Ewing in the Garden. So I have a different view.
Well, it's so funny. The '84, Hubie Brown. I just saw him last week. He's 147 years old, like myself, and he's still doing the games, and he's so sharp and great. I love him.
Right.
I gave him a copy of the book, but the highlight of his professional life was that '84 series of Bernard King. And they took him 7 games. I mean, Bernard was averaging 40 a game. I remember Cedric Maxwell called me over during practice before the first game of that series because Bernard was getting 40 a game against the Pistons in the playoffs. Yeah. And Max said, "There's no way a bitch walks like this is going to get 40 off of me." And then he did a mimic of Bernard's unusual gait. And I'm like, these guys, they were trash talkers, and they didn't care. Bernard wouldn't shake his hand for the next game. Max said, "Hey, if you're scared, get a dog." He didn't care. It was just, that's how they were. And that series went great. And again, for Hubie, they almost beat the Celtics in Game 7 at the Garden.
Yeah, I remember those Knicks, Pistons series with Kelly Tripucka. Yeah. Right. Now, honestly, in the old Joe Louis Arena, I remember those as a kid. And then Bernard is my favorite player. It still is jarring to see Julius Randle wearing his number 30, to be very honest with you.
You're right. That's not right.
Well, I mean, hey, look, I mean, I guess, Julius Randle at least is doing well by that number as far as I'm concerned. But, just is there any story that just that you forgot about, that you found notes for?
Oh, yeah, I had little notes
like
and stuff. So, again, Larry Bird, he could hold all these things in his head during a game. So he'd have a shooting drill at the old Boston Garden, late in the afternoon by himself, dark garden, come out with an equipment guy and just do the perimeter, shoot for half hour. All you heard was swishing. I'd get there early, plug in my Stone Age computer right next to the bench. He'd come over, he called me Scoop. He said, "Scoop, what are you working on?" I'm like, "I'm doing an early story. You were approximating the NBA record for consecutive free throws, Calvin Murphy at 88. So don't miss one tonight or I'll look bad in the paper." So during the first half, he got fouled. He's at the line. He makes the first. He looks over and winks at me before he makes the second. I mean, guys don't do that today. And he would actually, Mike Saunders, the trainer of the Knicks.
Sure.
Larry was banking threes at Madison Square Garden before a game because he was getting bored. He won the three-point thing 3 years in a row and started banking them. And Saunders said, "You can't do that in a game." And Larry said, "If you give me $5, I will." And sure enough, they get way ahead of the Knicks. Fourth quarter, he banks a three. He runs by the Knick bench with his greedy palm extended. And where's my $5, Mike?
Love stories like that. Absolutely love stories like that because he was the legend. That's part of the legend of Larry Legend, and that's right.
Well, and the legend. So he was so dense. All he cared about was basketball. He's poor guy, rural Southern Indiana, and worked his butt off. Became great. Mm-hmm. We were at the Atrium in Dallas to play the Mavericks, and we're in the hotel bar. It's a day off, and Springsteen is playing next door at the Reunion Arena. And the doors flew open, and kids came rushing through the lobby to get to the concert. Mm-hmm. And Larry looks up, and he goes, "What's that all about?" I said, "Well, Bruce Springsteen's playing next door tonight." He said, "Who's that?" And I said, "Larry, he's the U of rock and roll." He goes, "Oh, he must be pretty good then." And, he got tickets. He went. He said, "Yeah, it's too loud for me. I don't like that music, but he sweats a lot, and I appreciate that work ethic."
That's the legend. There's no doubt about that. So did he really know where the spots on the floor were? Like the dead spots on the floor? Or is that just the legend
stuff?
The
Bull Gang, when you have the ice and the parquet, you're going back and forth, and they assemble it. And Cheers did a whole episode on the bolts and all that stuff. So no one really knew. It changed from game to game. And when they would assemble the rims, when he was doing that shooting drill in the afternoon, anytime he missed one, he'd say, "Oh, Bull Gang screwed that up. There's something wrong with the basket. It's off by a quarter an inch. Otherwise, that would have been nothing but net." So, he had the thing down. But that's a myth that anyone actually knew when the ball wasn't going to come back to you.
Yeah, I know. Again, all of these things are why I wrote my book, Thank God It Ended, because honestly, just McHale and Parrish, I despised ML Carr growing up because he would just wave the towel.
He was baiting people.
Oh, my gosh. He did nothing. He did nothing but wave a towel. That's all I thought he did.
ML Carr, he was a guard in a federal prison before coming to the NBA. He played in Israel. He played overseas, played for the St. Louis Spirits. Asked Costas about that. And he was Larry Bird's bodyguard for the first 5 years of Larry's career. He had very little skill left at the end, but he got in the heads of the Lakers in the greatest final ever in '84. He would pound on their door before the game and say, "Come out here, you L.A. fakers. Come out and take your beating like men. Come on out here, Tragic Johnson." I mean, they didn't care. And then at the end of the game, he'd steal the ball and go dunk on him and just make him even more furious.
You're loving these stories, Brockman. I know you're.
I mean, I cannot wait for this.
It's all great. What's Auerbach's role in all of this?
Well, Red was just smart when the whole chess when others are playing checkers. He assembled these teams. Go back and look at those rosters in '84 when the Celtics beat Worthy, Magic, Kareem. Those guys were all blue chip conference. UCLA, North Carolina, Michigan State. The Celtics starting five went to Virginia Commonwealth, North Carolina Charlotte, Indiana State, Centenary, and Pepperdine. So Red would say, easy to get blue chip and win like that. Let's see you do what I do, win with guys from second-tier conferences. There was all kinds of layers to that. And Red, I loved Red. My old man smoked cigars and windows rolled up, driving to the dump every Saturday, so I was used to it. I enjoyed being around that. And he was wise, and everybody hated him. And he hated New York. Do you want to know why he hated New York, Rich?
Why is that?
Because he grew up there, but he felt that the NIT screwed his George Washington team out of the NIT appearance in 1937, and he never forgave that. He said they just didn't want a little school from Washington to come in and beat their ass, St. John's and all my ass, And he never forgot it, and he couldn't get past his hatred of all things New York, even though, he was a Brooklyn guy.
Of course. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.